Sun, sand, and selfies. This is how Italy's Deputy Prime Minister has become the country's most popular politician. He's a leader who rarely misses a photo opportunity or a chance to get close to the voters. Salvini spent this weekend literally pressing the flesh in southern Italy.
He seems like a politician who's close to the people. He's come here to meet us amongst the hidden treasures of the south.
But Salvini was in the south for more than just the beautiful beaches. The south is where Italy's immigration debate is most raw. It's here that hundreds of thousands of migrants have come ashore in the last 5 years. The Interior Minister has used his tough stance on immigration to turn his Lega from a regional party into Italy's most popular political force.
I've just banned 2 NGO boats carrying hundreds of migrants from entering. People are protesting, but who cares?
Still, controversy dogs Salvini wherever he goes. Left-wing protesters even followed him to the beach. His populist anti-immigration rhetoric has divided the country. In Sicily, supporters and opponents brawled as Salvini met a city mayor. And many are afraid of what would happen if he became Prime Minister.
If Salvini gets an absolute majority, it will have terrible consequences for the country. Salvini isn't merely a voice in favour of Italian sovereignty. He's quite close to being a racist or a xenophobe.
Whether the Interior Minister heads up a new government depends on whether there are new elections. Right now, it's unclear if the Lega has enough votes in Parliament to force them through. But if there is an election, Matteo Salvini looks set to win. That would have immense consequences for Italy and the EU.
All right, well, let's bring in our correspondent, Bernd Riegert. He's been following this story for us from Brussels. Hi, Bernd. So how is this going to pan out? How likely is it that Matteo Salvini will get his way on this no-confidence vote?
There will be snap elections in Italy at some point in time, but maybe not so fast as the right-wing leader Matteo Salvini wants them, because there are many hurdles to this step to take. For example, there is the possibility that the left-wing populists, Cinque Stelle, 5 stars, and the current opposition, the socialists, team up and form a new majority to keep the current Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte in power. There's also the possibility that Sergio Mattarella, the president of the state, chooses to install a caretaker government and leave parliament in place. He can do that for up to 1 year. And there's, of course, also the possibility that the Senate, which is deliberating as we speak, will block or stall the appeal by Matteo Salvini for a vote of no confidence. So many entangled things like a big bowl of spaghetti. There are many options still, but Italians are also sure at the end there will be some elections, maybe at the end of the year.
Bernd, what consequences could all of this have for Europe?
Well, a crisis in Italy, of course, is always bad news for Europe because the Italian economy is weak and the government is obliged to table a budget for the next year, which it will not do in this crisis situation. There's no plan how to get rid of the overwhelmingly high debt in Italy. And there's also talk that Matteo Salvini, as a prime minister, could leave the euro, the common currency. He denies that, but still there are these rumors. And this would be, of course, a major crisis for the European Union and also the first stress test for Ursula von der Leyen, the new incoming EU Commission president.
All right, DW's Bernd Riegert reporting there for us from Brussels. Thank you, Bernd.
A row over the fate of a high-speed train line between the cities of Turin and Lyon could be the issue that leads to the collapse of Italy's fragile coalition government. The country's five-star movement wants to scrap the project, but coalition partners, the League, headed by Interior Minister Matteo Salvini, are determined for it to go ahead. When the country's populist government came to power 14 months ago, it pledged to kickstart growth. But instead of a promised boom, the Italian economy has contracted by 0.2% this year. National debt, currently at 132% of the country's entire economic output, is more than twice of what EU rules allow. And that figure is expected to rise by a further 2%. Relations between Italy and the EU are already strained. Now there are fears that the country's political turmoil could deal a further blow to already sluggish eurozone growth.
All right, let's talk some more about the crisis in Italy with Marcus Will, senior economist at the University of St. Gallen in Switzerland. Marcus, good to have you on the program. Mr. Salvini is pushing for a no-confidence vote in the Italian parliament this week. He aims to become prime minister. His chances aren't that bad. His party is polling way ahead of all the others. Would this be good news or bad news for Italy and for Europe?
No, the beach boy wouldn't be good news neither for Italy nor for Europe. I mean, Mr. Salvini is a populist. He's arguing with migration policy figures and discussions. And he hasn't reflected at all on the economic situation of Italy.
Now, let's take a look at the economic situation here. The government that Mr. Salvini was a big part of, under this government, unemployment dropped slightly. Italy increased its exports, has a trade balance of 46 billion euros. It doesn't seem to be that bad, does it?
It's not a bad country at all. I mean, Italy is third or fourth largest economy in the eurozone. It's, I think, number 8 or 9 in the world. So it's a country with Luxottica, with DeLonghi, with Ferrari, with many other corporations, particularly in the northern Italy region, which are very good. So the country has a very good basis for an economic performance. But on the other hand, I mean, the debt figures and the bureaucracy and the politics is the bad side of Italy.
And that hasn't changed under the government, which is now on the brink of collapsing. Italy is due to start preparations for its 2020 budget in September. Now, if we look back at this year's budget, that has already been it was a contagious budget. It was highly debated in Brussels. What do we make of these negotiations ahead of us now?
Well, if Mr. Salvini really would become prime minister, the budget process and the discussions with Brussels will be very, very difficult. No doubt about it. Whether or not he will become prime minister remains to be seen. But I mean, if you would have a budget surplus or deficit of 2.1 or 2 or 3%, isn't really the issue, because we need to actually get down from the 135 GDP to debt ratio, which amounted in Italy over the years. And you need structural reforms for that. You need infrastructure reforms for that. You need a cut in pensions. You need tax reforms and so forth. And none of this is really something what Mr. Salvini would want to do. He has told the people a completely different story.
Marcus Will, senior economist of the University of St. Gallen, talking to us about the situation in Italy. Marcus, thanks for being on the show.
Welcome.